Have you ever met a stranger, and in that moment time seemed to stand still? A fleeting glance that made your heart skip a beat, a nameless stirring deep inside, a strange feeling as if you've known this person for a long time, even though it's your first encounter. And then, beyond logic or reason, you sense that this meeting is no coincidence. It's not just a random encounter, it's a deeper kind of signal. A whisper from the universe saying, this person has something for you. Perhaps it's a lesson, a reflection, an awakening, or even a destined love. But whatever it is, their presence prompts you to look deeply within yourself. That is when the inner journey begins. Carl Jung once said, "The people we meet in life are not random. They appear as mirrors reflecting something within us. To him, fated encounters are not coincidences, but a form of synchronicity, when the outer world and the inner world intersect, creating a symbolic moment for the soul's growth." In an era where love is often reduced to dating apps, fleeting messages, and short-term relationships, we easily forget an important truth: true love is not something we seek outside. It is something drawn toward us from within. When you've stepped deeply into your healing journey, when you no longer beg for love out of lack, but begin to live from wholeness, that is when the universe responds. And it doesn't respond with noise, but with very subtle signs. Destined love, if it exists, doesn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't overwhelm or explode. Instead, it quietly seeps into the soul like a gentle melody, touching the deepest memories of your heart. You won't need to chase it. You won't need to cling to it. And you won't be haunted by the fear of losing it, because that connection does not come to fill a void, but to awaken the light within you. So how do you know this is the person the universe sent? How do you tell the difference between a fleeting crush and a destined soul? There's no fixed formula, no specific manual. But there are profound signs. If you're quiet enough to listen, open enough to feel, you'll realize this isn't just a relationship. It's a spiritual event unfolding. This article won't tell you that true love is always forever. It also won't promise that the one you love will never leave. Instead, it will guide you into a deep dialogue with yourself, where every encounter carries meaning and every stirring is the universe speaking to your heart. So open your heart, observe, and be ready, not to seek love, but to recognize the signs that the universe is leading you to the one your soul has always awaited. Sign 1. This person makes you confront your inner shadow. There are people who enter your life not to make you feel comfortable, but to awaken you. Not with gentle words, but through intense reactions within your own inner world. You find yourself becoming more sensitive, more vulnerable, even questioning your own worth. They haven't done anything wrong, yet their presence stirs up emotions you once buried or didn't dare face. And that is the first sign that the universe is sending someone into your life so that you may confront your own shadow. In analytical psychology, Carl Jung defines the shadow as the unconscious part of the soul, the place where our darker aspects, wounds, repressed memories, and traits we refuse to acknowledge are stored. The shadow is not evil. It is simply unintegrated. It quietly governs our behavior, causing us to overreact to ordinary situations. And the irony is, you can't see your own shadow until someone reflects it back to you. The one sent by the universe is rarely perfect or ideal. They are a living mirror, reflecting the unhealed fragments of you, the limiting beliefs you haven't recognized. When you are with them, you may feel both deeply in love and utterly confused. You feel seen, yet strangely exposed and vulnerable. This is not by chance. It's the profound effect of touching the depths of the unconscious. They may trigger jealousy, anxiety, insecurity, not because they intend to, but because they touch the old wounds you've never healed. Perhaps it's the fear of abandonment from childhood. Perhaps it's the belief that you're not good enough, not worthy of love. Perhaps it's unresolved pain from past relationships. All these things, once awakened, force you to look back at yourself. You may want to avoid it. You may want to walk away. You may conclude that this person isn't for me because they make me hurt. But within that very pain lies a profound opportunity for healing you've never had before, because you cannot integrate the shadow by running away. You can only transcend it by recognizing, accepting, and embracing the parts you once rejected. And the strange thing is, though they bring emotional turbulence, you still can't turn away. There is an invisible thread connecting you to them, not out of dependency, but out of the deep knowing this person didn't come to make me happy. They came to help me grow, and that is a rare kind of love, the kind the universe sends not to soothe you, but to awaken your soul. This is not the kind of love that's calm and easy like in the movies. It's the love of transformation, a relationship that forces you to face yourself every day, a connection that once experienced leaves you forever changed. You become stronger, more authentic, more profound, not because they healed you, but because they pushed you to heal yourself. Carl Jung once said, "No one becomes enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." The person the universe sends first is often the one who pulls you out of your comfort zone and into the journey of facing your shadow, not to break you, but to help you be reborn through it. And if you have the courage to move through this phase, you'll begin to realize something: they didn't come to save you. They came to awaken the deepest power within you, the part you forgot, suppressed, but always longed to bring to life. And when you embrace your shadow, you're also stepping closer to the true light of your soul. Sign 2, they don't stay, but they leave a lasting mark. There are encounters that pass through your life like a lightning bolt across the sky, leaving behind a trace that is both sweet and aching. We often ask ourselves, if this was the universe's arrangement, why couldn't they stay? The answer lies in the nature of catalyst souls. They come not to write a long chapter in our story, but to unlock a vital door within us, one we would never have found on our own. At the deepest level of the soul, every human carries an invisible contract, a soul agreement signed before we came into this world. This contract outlines who we will meet, when and for what purpose. With certain souls, the agreement doesn't mention the word forever. It only defines a powerful enough moment that shakes us off our old orbit. When that moment is fulfilled, their role is complete, and the stage opens for our next personal journey. Carl Jung once likened the meeting of two personalities to a chemical reaction. Once contact occurs, both are transformed. That image speaks more to a catalytic process than to ownership. In chemistry, a catalyst doesn't stay in the reaction forever. It remains just long enough to break down the old structure, then quietly disappears, leaving behind an entirely new compound. In a spiritual sense, such a person plays a similar role. They shake our habits, beliefs, and definitions of safety. They awaken dormant potentials, and then step back, making room for the newly born version of ourselves. At first, the departure is easily translated by the brain as pain. We crave a romantic tale like those in Hollywood, where once two people find each other, they must stay together forever. But the universe doesn't operate on romantic scripts. It moves according to the laws of evolution. If a soul is strong enough to force us to reflect, to demand transformation, then the purpose is complete. Staying longer might only slow us down as we'd cling to the old flavors instead of moving forward. When they leave, the wound in our heart reveals layers of unspoken emotion. The pain is no longer the enemy. It becomes a stern teacher urging us to ask, what have I really lost, a person, or merely an illusion of forever? Through this question, we learn to distinguish attachment from awareness. Attachment binds us through promises of possession, entangling us in fear of loss. Awareness invites us to contemplate the lesson, to honor their departure, and to hold love as a flowing energy, not a material object to be stored away. That flow of energy etches itself onto our soul, so that years later, when we look back, we still feel a warm current run down our spine. We remember them not with longing, but with gratitude. Grateful they appeared when we needed it most. Grateful they shattered the invisible walls we had built. Grateful they stepped aside so we could become deeper, braver human beings. Some say, if love doesn't last, it was never love. But Jung would smile and reply, the most enduring love is the kind large enough to embrace transformation. When they leave, they complete the circle of their catalyst role so that we can walk into the next phase of our growth. If we keep clinging, the reaction stops. We hold on to a shadow of the past and miss the chance to expand. And then one morning, sitting quietly with a cup of coffee, we realize our heart has softened. We no longer wish they were still here. We simply smile because they once were. In that moment, we understand the soul's purpose. True love is not measured by the length of time spent together, but by the depth of the quantum leap each person makes after the meeting. They may be long gone, but that leap remains within us, like a sacred engraving that reminds us the universe always knows exactly when to send someone into our life, and exactly when to let them go. So, the wheel of evolution can keep turning. So if today you are hurting because a connection that felt like destiny has fallen apart, try seeing that brokenness through the eyes of the soul. Ask yourself, what part of me has been awakened? How much have I grown from that encounter? And then, instead of framing love in terms of forever, honor it as a flash of lightning that lit up the night, just bright enough for you to see the path before the darkness returned, to let your personal journey continue. Sign 3. The pain of losing them becomes a gift of transformation. When someone enters your life and then leaves, the pain is not merely a matter of loss. It is a profound awakening, a shock from within that forces you to confront what you once didn't dare to face. A cracked heart is not meant to make you collapse, but to let the light in. And that light becomes the gateway to the higher version of yourself. Many people mistakenly believe that when love ends, it means failure. But from the perspective of analytical psychology and the philosophy of the soul, deep relationships are never meant solely to stay. They come to sever the outdated parts of us that no longer serve our growth. The pain of separation is not an endpoint, but a threshold of transformation, where you are forced to break away from the old self to begin becoming the person your soul has always been reaching for. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain. Indeed, when they leave, you don't just lose a person. You lose the image of yourself that you clung to, the habits that once felt safe, the illusions about love, and even the parts of yourself you believed were you. Everything crumbles like a sandcastle. And in that wreckage, you begin to dig deep. Who am I without them? What remains when all that's familiar disappears? These questions are not comfortable, but they open the path back to your essence. You learn to rise, not with someone else's help, but through the power within. You stop begging them to return and begin to ask, what does my soul truly need? That's when you shift from sadness to discovery, from suffering to understanding, from blame to responsibility. And this process, slow but steady, is true rebirth. You also realize that pain doesn't make you weak, it makes you profound. Every emptiness is an invitation to listen within. Every sleepless night becomes an opportunity to converse with your true self. Every tear that falls is a release of suppressed emotion. Pain becomes the language of the soul, a language you once didn't understand, but now learn to welcome. That person, though they are no longer near, still lives in every layer of your transformation, not as a sad memory, but as a symbol of awakening. They represent the moment you began to break the old cycles. They were the first hammer blow that cracked the shell you once believed was your true identity. And without them, you might have stayed in your comfort zone, where there is no upheaval, but also no growth. True love is not about possession, but reflection. And when that reflection ends, it leaves behind a space, not to be filled by someone new, but for you to touch your own essence. In that space, you begin to rewrite the beliefs that once limited you. You begin to love yourself, not to be chosen, but because you know you are worthy. You no longer search for another half because you've learned to become whole first. And miraculously, the moment you stop clinging, stop blaming yourself, stop asking, why did they leave me? You begin to see clearly they didn't abandon you. They simply fulfilled their soul's role in your journey. They came to awaken, and once you had awakened, they quietly stepped away, to make room for you to walk into your own light. You no longer see pain as an enemy. You see it as a gift from the universe, a gift wrapped in tears, but when opened contains an entirely new, you stronger, more sincere, more capable of love. And you realize even if you had to trade everything to become that version of yourself, it would still be worth it. Carl Jung once said, "The wound is the place where the light enters you, and the person you once loved, even though they are no longer by your side, is that light." They are the sign the universe sent to remind you true love doesn't come from holding on, but from letting go at the right moment. Not everyone who stays leaves a deep mark. Sometimes the one who leaves is the one forever etched into your becoming. Sign 4. Your soul cannot return to who it was after meeting them. There is a kind of encounter that leaves you no longer who you once were, not because you changed to become someone else, but because their very presence awakened the deepest part of your soul. The part you had forgotten, hidden away, or never believed could be lived. After that meeting, you no longer see the world the same way. The way you love, the way you feel, the way you show up. All of it changes. And that change is irreversible. Carl Jung once said, "The meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed." This is not a surface-level change, but a transformation at the soul level. When that person enters your life, they don't just open new doors, they cause old ones to shatter. They make you ask, what is truly real in this life? What have I believed that is no longer true? And you begin the journey of shedding your old self, not because they asked you to, but because their presence makes it impossible to keep living a false life. You find that you can no longer tolerate shallow conversations, soulless relationships, or jobs without meaning. You can no longer pretend to be okay when you're in turmoil inside. You stop trying to please everyone, because after meeting them, you've tasted a kind of connection that's real to the bone, where you are seen, heard, and touched without needing to defend yourself, And once your soul has touched that kind of truth, it can no longer return to falsehood. What's special is that this person doesn't have to stay by your side. In fact, they may appear only for a short time, but just one glance, one touch, one deep conversation is enough to awaken a part of you that had been asleep. And that awakened part will silently guide you forward on the path back to your true self. This change is not always pleasant. It may make you feel lost, as if you no longer belong to the world you once knew. You start to feel distant from people who used to be close, uninterested in things that once brought you joy. That's not a sign that you're on the wrong path. It's a sign that you're being restructured from within. And that person, though no longer with you, remains the sacred catalyst for this rebirth. True love isn't always about long companionship. Sometimes it's a soul arriving to activate your deepest memories. Memories of who you truly are, of dreams you once forgot, of the part of your soul you once sacrificed in order to be accepted. When they appear, everything you once buried begins to come alive. And that can send you into crisis, but also gives you the chance to touch your most authentic self. Jung believed that the deeper goal of human life is not stability, but individuation, the process by which each person returns to the center of their soul, living fully as their one-of-a-kind essence. Meeting that special person is often the starting point for that journey. They don't come to stay forever, but to flip a switch. Once the switch is flipped, the light begins to spread even if they are no longer present. You may still miss them, not out of dependence, but because they touched the deepest part of you. And because of them, you now know that real connection exists, that your soul deserves to be seen, heard, and loved without masks, that you don't need to force yourself to be anyone else, because your truest self is already enough. From there, you stop searching for love as something external. You begin to become your own lighthouse, living from depth, loving with presence, and connecting with the world through an undefended heart. That person may have gone far, but your soul has been awakened forever. And that is the unmistakable sign the universe sent them so that you would never live the same again. Sign 5. Your soul still feels connected to them, even when you're no longer together. There is a kind of connection that is not bound by space or time, a quiet yet enduring feeling, like a thin invisible thread linking you and that person, regardless of distance, time apart, or even the silence that has lost all names. This is no longer ordinary love. It is a resonance between two souls who met at the exact moment the universe intended. When you feel they are still there within you, even when there are no more messages, no more meetings, no more words, it's not an illusion or a stubborn attachment. It is the deeper language of the soul, one that transcends logic and physical boundaries. Jung believed that events which seem coincidental are in fact meaningful synchronicities, signs that an invisible order is operating beneath the surface of life. You might come across their name somewhere, hear a familiar song you once shared, feel your heart tighten for no apparent reason. And at that very moment, they appear in your mind, not as a memory, but as a living presence, as if your soul is still in conversation with theirs beyond words and appearances. You don't need to say, it don't need to see them again, but you somehow know they are thinking of you. Not through proof, but through a quiet, yet profound vibration in your heart. This kind of connection is not always easy. It can tear you between logic and emotion, because logic wants to let go, but the heart cannot. But remember, this is not ordinary clinging. This is a soul memory, etched into a layer deeper than the mind. It is a reminder that the two of you once recognized each other, not through appearances, but through an internal resonance. That first look, that first touch, that first conversation, all felt familiar, even though it was your first time. And that knowing was real. There are people we love with our hearts, but lose through reality. However, not all separations are final. Are. Sometimes souls continue walking together, even when their bodies no longer do. This is the kind of bond Jung would call the collective unconscious, where kindred souls always find their way back to each other, like water finding its way to the sea. Without needing possession, they remain present as a quiet light, sometimes silent, sometimes aching, but never truly gone. You don't need to explain to anyone why you still have feelings for someone who has long departed, because soul connections don't need to be proven. They only ask that you be honest with what you feel. No judgment, no need to rationalize. Because if that person truly was sent by the universe as part of your growth, then the fact that you still feel them, even if just a name in your memory, is a sign that they touched the deepest part of you. And if after everything, your heart still stirs when thinking of them, let that feeling exist as part of your journey. Don't suppress it, but don't imprison it in hope either. Let it live as a sacred symbol that once there was someone who touched your soul in a way no one else could, and that touch awakened you, helped you grow, and made you no longer the person you used to be. Love is not always about being together. Sometimes it's the ability to continue connecting from afar, in silence, in stillness, in a sacred space that only two souls can understand. And if that connection still lives in you, be grateful for it, because it proves that true love does not need conditions to exist. It only needs a soul sincere enough to feel it, and a heart wide enough to hold it freely. Throughout this article, we've explored 5 profound signs that the universe may be sending someone special into your life, not to paint reality in rosy hues, but to awaken your soul. They may arrive like a storm or like a gentle breeze, but their presence always leaves an indelible mark. From touching the old wounds you once buried to leaving behind a void that forces you to redefine yourself, to helping you realize they have awakened the truest part of you. None of it is coincidence. It is the delicate orchestration of a sacred order far beyond ordinary understanding. And perhaps the most magical thing is this: after they leave you are no longer the same person. You begin to love with a heart that has been broken and healed by truth. You no longer beg for love, you become love. No longer searching outward, but returning inward. No longer clinging, but letting go. No longer trying to be accepted, but living authentically to attract what is aligned. I once had a relationship like that. They entered my life when I was trying to fill the void within with things outside. We weren't together for long, but the connection was like a mirror, showing me who I was, how I had been hurt, and how shallowly I had lived with my own heart. When they left, I fell into crisis, but it was from that very crisis that I began the healing journey, learning to listen to myself, and more importantly, learning to love without fear. It wasn't an easy path, but if you're on that journey now, please know that you are not alone. The universe always sends people and experiences, sometimes sweet, sometimes challenging, to guide you back to your true self. And once you return to that place, you'll no longer fear loneliness, because you'll know your presence is already enough. True love will come, not to fill you, but to resonate with you. If this article has touched you, if you've once had a soul connection you couldn't explain if you're on a journey of healing and rediscovery, then let's continue to go even deeper together. Soul depth is a space where I share reflections on depth psychology, the path of individuation, love and soul connection, from the lens of Carl Jung and personal experience. If you wish to walk this journey back to your true self, I invite you to subscribe so you won't miss any healing content in the future. Thank you for taking the time to listen with all your heart. One day we will find each other, not through longing, but through the frequency of truth.